Welcome to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast that prepares you for one of life's toughest yet inevitable moments, stepping in when your parents need you most. Hosted by Spade, a senior real estate specialist with Keller Williams Realty. We'll dive deep into more than just moving. We're talking smart financial planning, making tough decisions with confidence, and strategies to avoid being caught in crisis mode. Join us for real stories, expert insights, and actionable steps to stay ahead of the curve. Now, here's your host, Spade.
And welcome back to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad, the podcast where we help Gen Xers navigate life and our aging parents. I am your host, Spade with Keller Williams Realty, right here in San Diego. And today we are talking with Dr. Joseph M. Casciani, a psychologist, author, and founder of the Living 100 Club. With over 30 years experience working with older adults, he speaks and writes about aging with resilience, redefining purpose, and finding the meaning of life in the third act. He's also the creator of Better, Longer, and Happier, the card deck series for senior living communities. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for coming on to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad.
You're most welcome, Chris. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we have to thank our friend Bill Kelly for putting us together.
Okay, yeah, Bill was an early guest on my podcast, so I'm glad we're making these connections. It's really cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's dive into it. So let's talk about what the psychology of aging is and why does it matter so much?
Well, you mentioned in the intro, I'm a psychologist. I've worked with older adults my whole career. And I learned long ago that our attitudes and outlook about getting older really play a major role that colors how well we cope with change. So for me, our mindset, our outlook, all about the psychology of aging really colors how well we cope with challenges and move forward and, keep getting up off the mat. And like I say, opening new doors, to me, that's the most important thing about getting older and longevity. Yeah.
Nice. It's a mindset thing. So let's talk about what does redefining the future mean for older adults? What does that look like?
Well, we've had this perception about aging for many decades, maybe for a couple of centuries, that aging brings loss and decline and frailty and helplessness and dependency and all those ageist stereotypes. And to me, we need to flip that script and look at aging as a period of opportunity and strength and kind of resilience. So the myth is frailty. The truth is resilience. And yes, we do have challenges. We hit those hurdles and puddles. We know it's not a smooth road, but to me, it's that resilience, that ability to get back up off the mat and keep moving forward. So that's redefining our future to me, because it's not this downward slope. It's really looking ahead at what opportunities can come along. Dan Sullivan, motivational speaker, had a great quote. He said, "Our future should be bigger than our past." And a lot of seniors I talk to just don't buy that. Yeah. They want to stay in the good old years and good old days and the families and the memories. And I'm not putting that down at all, but we can't live back there. We need to live for today and look ahead to what's in the future. So that's all about redefining aging.
Well, you talked about resilience. How do we build that resilience after major life changes? What does that look like?
Well, I've talked a lot about resilience, and it's something we have or we can develop. It's not like it's not available to some people. Resilience is it explained by how we label an event, how we interpret an event that happens to us, because that interpretation, that labeling is really very powerful. So if we maybe have a fall or, maybe a stroke, and we label it as, well, this is defining my future, my good days are over. Well, I'm not minimizing it, but the fact that we can look at that as a challenge, and I need to process it, maybe grieve in some cases, but we can move beyond it. We can look at what's next rather than being stuck. So resilience, it allows us to get through, a lot of tough times, and, sometimes with a sense of humor, and sometimes that fire and motivation. I say, we might feel like we don't have any juice left or any motivation left. We're all burned out. And I say, no, as long as we're taking a breath, as long as we're alive, we can still get in touch with that drive inside of us. I mean, look at Stephen Hawking, the famed physicist.
Yep.
ALS, and really unable to move his body other than his cheek and his facial bones. So he was able to write a book because a computer had attached some electrodes to a cheek, and that's pretty remarkable. Yeah, you can still write a book. So that's shifting the whole perspective, Chris. Yeah.
So as Gen X children, how is it that we can support our parents through any sort of transition? Because I think some of us, it was, our parents raised us for so long, and now it's kind of like the role was reversed. If we ended up getting hurt, our parents got us through that, or like a breakup, right? Like when we had our first heartbreak, our parents got us through that. How do we as adults help our parents do some transitions?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about that and how we are now parenting our own parents. And I think that's not fair. If our parents still have the intellect and the mental capacity, I think we want to respect their attitudes, their opinions. Yeah, they may have some physical disabilities or decline. As long as dementia is not in the picture, that's a different conversation. I think we have to respect the position that our parent is taking, or mom or dad or both, and kind of understand, like, this whole notion of aging in place is really important. And many parents just say, I don't want to move to a independent living facility. I don't want to move to an assisted living facility. I'm fine. I can manage here. So we can go on and on about that. But I think what the adult children really, it serves everyone the best by understanding where their parents are, why they're making the decision, why they're feeling the way they do about moving or not moving. And we can't change their behavior. The person has to change his or her own attitudes and behavior. We can't change them for them. So the more we can hear them and let them explain and let them kind of justify where they are, that's being the most respectful. And that's what allows change down the road, believe it or not. When a person can explain their position, they don't have to put up the walls anymore, because when they put up the walls, we're not going to make any inroads. And allowing them to explain and describe and justify allows them to put the walls down, and then they can look at other options. That's the whole story behind motivational interviewing. We can't change others' behavior, but we can listen to them and help them make more informed decisions.
Yeah, it's almost we have to let them self-discover on their own.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. So on that kind of the same topic, on mindset, what's one mindset shift around leaving a long-term home? Because when I go and meet people, there's sometimes I have the adult children there and they want this done quick. And I have to reel them back, right? I have to go, okay, your mom or dad's lived here for 30, 40, 50 years. This isn't going to be something that they're going to jump through a hoop quickly, right? They're not you. And there's a lot of resistance around leaving a long time home. So what's one mindset shift that, around leaving a long-term home?
Sure. Well, as you said, somebody might be really very comfortable in their current situation, and they do not want to move. So I would say let's consider. Don't need to make any decisions, but let's consider some of these other options. I have a relative. Well, my brother-in-law has a wife whose mother just turned 101, and she was living independently in her own home up until about a year ago. So at 99. And the daughter, of course, and the family was really encouraging mom to let's give up. No, well, mom was managing okay. So I think what I recommended to her is that let mom explain why she wants to stay on her own. And that's when the walls come down, because then we can listen and understand. Yeah, we can present more information. So it's really about helping them make more informed decisions. Now, you're going to decide, as you said, Chris, self-discovery is part of the process. Here are some options. And if you're open, let's visit this facility. And they found a great facility in West LA. And the mom loves it. She just loves it. She said, I don't know why I didn't move here. So anyway, but that's got to come internally. That doesn't come from
Right.
external forces. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all going to be, they have to discover it on their own. And the other thing that I find too is I always ask people, like you're saying, listen to them and talk to them. And then sometimes the first thing I do is I bring in my aging in place expert, who's a contractor. Is there any modifications that we can make to this home to help you stay here a little bit longer? And, they love that as an option. And in some cases, that person will come in and, the homeowner will then discover, well, maybe this isn't something I want to do. So it's part of that self-discovery, right? It's like, bringing in those extra experts to help out.
Yeah. Those little aids, those little devices or bars or, any kind of adjustments. We can now get elevators in a 2-story home that are so relatively inexpensive compared to what they used to be. So there are a lot of modifications. And you're right. Let's make some of these small steps. Elevator is not a small step, of course. But let's see what we can do to make it safer, to make sure mom or dad is getting the best risk management allowed, and maybe meals or, phone calls or contacts from others. There's a lot of resources available in our communities to help people age in place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. When is the right time to plan for the future? I know what your answer is going to be, but I want to hear it out loud because I've told the audience before, but what do you say?
Yeah. Well, we always have to be prepared. We always have to take the necessary planning steps and preparation. And the right time is now. We don't have to make any decisions about it, but we have to be prepared. And at some point down the road, later, maybe sooner, maybe at a time when we're not, we don't have that leisure to look at a lot of places. So what I'm saying is, let's have the conversation. What can we do now, Mom? What can we do just in case something happens? Or what do we do when you change your mind? So the conversation can happen now. I had a guest on my podcast just last month, and she's an estate planning attorney, Nancy Kogar, and she's in Tennessee, but she has a great website with a lot of these resources and recommendations and tips for family members. Here's how to have the conversation. Here's what you want to talk about, not just financial planning, but estate planning and decision making. So this is something that should happen today.
Yeah. So there's no crisis
Yeah, when there's no crisis. Um, we have a close family friend, and she and her husband are looking at downsizing and moving to a facility. And the husband's really been reluctant, and the wife is kind of going and visiting with other, basement experts. And the husband was just adamant he didn't want to go anywhere, he didn't want to move, he's doing fine. But in fact, he's not physically, he's declining. Um, but eventually they came to a place, and I suggested to the wife, I said, look, give your husband a chance to explain why he wants to stay. And again, I'm kind of reiterating myself. The husband explained again, and in process, he dropped those walls. He let his guard down. And he said, okay, I'll take a look at it. Anyway, they went to a place and they loved it. He loved it. He was just like a new person. He was very outgoing. They're it's interacting with a lot of the staff and other residents. So that's what happens when we drop our guard, because that guard is very, it's like we're in handcuffs. We can't get very much done. It's safe, it's predictable, it's familiar, like a comfort zone, but it's also very limiting. So we want to help that person drop their guard. So yeah.
So, um, what is one conversation Gen Xers should have with their parents? My brother and I had a conversation with our dad, a while ago, but, about, what does the future look like? And, what would happen if? Are these some of the conversations, or what more conversations should we be having with our parents?
Well, I guess the big question is, what would you like if you had a stroke tomorrow and could not communicate for yourself, and could not take any responsible actions for? What would you like? How would you like us to proceed? Those are the tough conversations. And mom might say, "Oh, that's not going to happen." Well, uh, you know, you humor me. Let's just explore that. It may never happen, but let's get it done and put it in the back burner. We can pull it out if ever. So is that conversation that, what do you want? Where do you want to go? There's all these medical procedures that need to be in place, but the practical ones are, what happens if? So that's the big question. Like, want to make sure we respect your desires and your wishes. It's not just end of life planning. It's some things that are much more immediate than that. So, yeah.
Yeah, the whole reason I started this podcast was a friend of mine ended up in crisis mode, and she made me her medical care directive, but didn't tell me. And so when the doctors were calling me and then asking me about end of life care, and I was literally walking in to go show my house. And I was like, "Oh, I can't have this conversation with you right now. We'd never talked about that. So I don't know." I ended up finding out then and there that she had to do not resuscitate. So, and that was the first time I had heard about it. It was the first time I had heard that I was the one making those decisions and not her family. So that's kind of scary. So yes, it's good to have those medical conversations ahead of time.
They're difficult. I mean, they're not pleasant. It's like looking at the sun. Who wants to do that? But it's something we need to do. And like I said, we don't need to put the spotlight on it, but we do need to get it done and put aside, put on the back burner, just in case it does come up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about caregiving, because I've talked to several people in this podcast that have been caregivers. How can caregivers manage rather emotional toll of caregiving? Because that's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult, especially, if they're raising their own family and have their own kids. And we used to call it the sandwich generation, managing mom and dad and managing our children. So it takes a heavy toll on adult children. But I guess one thing to remember is that you're not alone. There are really great resources out there for caregivers. And I can share a couple with your audience. The Family Caregiver Alliance, their website is caregiver.org. Second one is Caregiver Action, and that's caregiveraction.org. Caring.com. There's 3 good websites, and they provide just a whole host of resources. There are a lot of support groups and communities. There's links to other websites, maybe the Alzheimer's Association or dementia-related organization. There's a lot of information. We don't have to go it alone. We don't have to learn on our own. So I think that's important for the caregiver to understand that this is not new territory, and other people have been down this road, and they can share what they've learned with you. And those 3 sites are really important resources.
So let's switch gears slightly. What are some surprising benefits of getting older?
Well, I coincidentally, I just gave a talk this week up at the Senior Center in Rancho Santa Fe. And I love talking about this because there are, our history is that, well, getting older means decline and pulling back and whatever. But I had this whole presentation based on the benefits of getting older. There are, what I came up with about a dozen different benefits. And, some of the big ones are just the wisdom that we have from our years of experience. Decision-making, we've been down those roads, and some of them have been very bumpy and rocky, and we've had a lot of disappointment. We have a lot of that wisdom accumulated learning experience. We have an appreciation for life that we may not have had as adults. And, we savor the preciousness of every moment. We have an opportunity for leisure time. I don't have those schedules anymore. I don't have those responsibilities. I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to feel guilty about it. It's perfectly okay to say no. The whole notion of spiritual growth and time for inner reflection and asking some of those really tough questions about the meaning of life and life after death, and maybe sharing that with our close friends. So that spiritual growth is we don't have time for that. I mean, some people do, but we don't have a lot of time for that in our 30s, 40s, even 50s. So what is there to celebrate about aging? I say plenty. Relationships, we can be more selective. We don't have to maintain those superficial relationships. Yep. Really be more selective about who we want to be close to. And,
Yeah, I'll be 51, and trust me, my inner circle has gone down a lot more. Oh yeah, all these people, we're condensing it now. We're condensing it.
Yeah, one more thing I'd add, because older adults are re-entering the workforce in numbers that we've never seen before. So as of last year, about 40% people 55 and over are still working, and 21% over 65 are still working. And that's going to increase by 2030. We're expecting to see that 65 and over up to maybe 30%, 3 out of 10. And that's something we, haven't seen before. And I think it's, maybe financially beneficial, but it's not just for the income. It's really for that sense of kind of purpose and connection and kind of engaging with their world around them. And we have a lot of experiences. One of the other benefits I talked about was the opportunity to rebrand ourselves. That sounds funny, but companies are the only ones that rebrand. We're not defined by who we were yesterday, right? If we were an accountant or a doctor or a nurse or a writer or a bookkeeper, that doesn't define who I have to be, who I can be in my future. We can rewrite the script. And that's a really beautiful notion to me about getting older. I'm not defined by who I was yesterday. I can create a new script. I can paint a new picture of myself. It's a blank screen. I can create whatever image I want, whatever character, whatever role I want to play. And that's that to me is the opportunity that we have in our future.
I think that's great. I always, I'm meeting with my financial planner again on Friday, to go over where I'm at, my goals,
Yeah.
what I want to be. And I always told her, I said, I will never be a Price is Right retiree. Like my grandparents, they just sat all day and watched game shows, Joker's Wild, Tic-Tac-Toe, all those things. And I I personally, you know, I know I would get bored. I just couldn't sit around and watch TV like that all afternoon, so I could definitely see myself doing something like pouring wine at a winery or something,
Yeah.
just nothing, nothing, where I have to think too much, but at least just getting out there, right?
Just that connection, and that's so important. I took up. I've never played a musical instrument my whole life, so I took up drums during COVID. I bought myself a set of electronic drums. Started taking drum lessons, and I love it. They're electronics, so I can wear a headset, and I don't get to. My wife doesn't get to enjoy my drumming, and my neighbors don't hear it. But it's another way. I mean, not just for the cognitive challenge and learning something new. It's the idea that I'd love to play on a band someday, or maybe just do some stand-up comedy or something like that. So, who knows?
Yes.
You know,
I've seen a lot of older adults in, their, I'm guessing, late 70s, 80s, doing stand-up comedy on TikTok and Instagram Reels, and they have these much younger audiences, and everybody is just laughing their ass off. I think it's great.
Yeah, I took an image of me playing the drums and I put it on my TikTok account, and my VA said, "Joe, you had 900 views over the weekend." So there is that interest. There is that interest. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So, I mean, so it sounds like what you're saying is older adults in their 70s and 80s can find purpose in their older life, and that it's never too late to make a big change, right?
Right. One of the if you're familiar with the blue zones, and these are the regions around the world where they found the greatest numbers of centenarians are living, and five, well, there's six now, but they find that all these centenarians have a lot of things in common, diet and activity. And one of the things that they all show is this sense of purpose and commitment and connection with their community, whether it's volunteering or teaching or something in their church. They all have this sense of purpose. And I say it's what puts a smile on our face when we wake up in the morning. It's this sense of purpose and connection that and really contributes to living longer. So that's another perk on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah. My grandma lived to 97,
Yeah.
and after my grandfather passed away, like I remember coming home from school because they babysat us and they were always watching these shows, right? But after my grandfather passed away in 1987, so I was 13 at the time, I remember she started getting more out of the house, and she volunteered at the hospital and a couple days a week. And she worked in the snack bar one day. And then the next one day a week, she would deliver juice and the flowers to people's hospital rooms. And she was always doing something. And, she was in charge of the rummage sale at church or whatever. She got into her community more. It wasn't for the money because she didn't make any money. It was all volunteer.
Sure.
But I mean, she lived independently until probably she was 95.
Yeah.
Before, she made the decision that I'm going to need help, and then, passed away at 97.
Sure. That's great. I mean, that's beautiful that we hear these stories all the time. People are just staying involved, and post-retirement means more than staying around and watching cooking shows.
Yeah. Well, if you watch the cooking shows and they lead to dinner parties at your house, right? Then that's good. So, what I hear you saying is social connection is huge, and it has a big impact on aging and, helping keep us young, right?
Yeah. I can give you a few examples of people I've come across because I do a lot of presentations at senior communities. And I like to share these examples. One is Edith Murway. And Edith Murway started competitive weightlifting at age 91. She continued to compete. And at age 95, she became a Guinness World Record holder for her age group.
So
Julia Hawkins started sprinting, competitive sprinting at age 100. Great story is this Gladys McGarry, and she and her husband were both physicians. And at age 71, her husband said, "I want a divorce," and she was devastated. They raised 6 children, and they had both formed the American Holistic Medicine Association, so they were very much business partners. Anyway, he got a divorce, and he remarried, and actually he invited her to his second wedding, and she said, "No, thanks." But was asked, he passed away. She was asked, she was still practicing at age in her 90s. She was asked, "Would you ever get married again?" She said, "No way. Why would I want to take care of another old man?" Well, people change, people grow, and they move on. And let's let go of the past and let's see what's next.
yeah. No, that's wildly important. So let's talk about technology for a second.
Oh yeah.
Does technology help or hurt seniors?
Well, obviously, if they know how to connect, it's a great help. It's a great help. And years ago, when I started my Live It to 100 Club, I was really had a question whether people were going to get into Facebook or any of these social media plans. And I learned that they really are. They're really very connected. And I started my TikTok account, which is Live It to 100 Club. And I'm just amazed that there are so many people that are still very much wanting to learn. So I think technology, can be a bit of a hurdle. People that don't have a phone and don't know how to go to the internet. But I think, again, there's resources. I'm going to have a guest on I do these live webinars every month, and I'm going to have a guest on who's a specialist in teaching seniors about technology and how to use their phones. So we'll have an hour conversation with Q&A. Podcasts are great, but you don't have the interaction from the guests. So that's why I started my community, Live Into Another community. And every month I have a guest on and we talk about different things. But people who are in the Zoom room can, even ask questions. Yeah. So, I would say they're indispensable because people just sometimes want to go off the grid. But I think it's a tool. I think it's a tool to learn, to stay informed, to stay connected. And we can still pick up the telephone and call our, cousin or, great grandchild. But I think the tool is reaching out and staying engaged. That's what's so crucial to living longer. I mean, I want to put a caveat in here. People who are alone are not necessarily lonely. Some people want to stay alone, but there are people who are alone and lonely. And that's why we have these great resources in the community, like senior centers all over the country. Yeah, people can join the senior centers and go in and interact and have lunch and, play a game of chess and all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did a volunteer day at Serving Seniors downtown San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful organization. And we helped serve lunch. We played bingo. It was fun. We had a good time today. Yeah, and we also made cards for the seniors who couldn't get out to the center. We made them cards, so that way when they got a meal delivered, then they got a card, from the group. And that's a place I like to go to moms all the time.
Yeah, good.
It's a great organization. Yeah. So what's one practical step that families can take today to kind of move these conversations forward, whether it's, helping their parents age in place, or what we had talked about, and like what would happen if, what's one practical step moving forward?
I'd say to see our parents as friends, not as parents. Just like parents need to see their children as friends, not necessarily as their, you know, job. That's fine, but they're friends. And let's connect as friends. So let's have conversations without the judgment, without the preconceived ideas, without the recommendations, let's just have it kind of open. And that's what's really necessary for the intergenerational connection. It's not like these judgments just get in the way, and then people can start to tune out that advice giving. So I say just to talk, Let's open up some of those doors. Let's open up some of those conversations. Mom, how would you like to take a trip with me up to? We'll take a bus ride up to Los Angeles and whatever. So it's reaching out as friends.
That's a good idea. And what happens if you, what do you do if you have siblings that you don't get along with? That's got to be tough.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is tough because someone might be very kind of accommodating and open and kind of patient, and the other one is saying, no, we got to change. We got to fix this. Mom's not safe. Yeah. And, that's life. Parent needs to hear both voices, and you try to reach some compromise and find some common ground. Okay. You want A, I want B. For mom, let's see if we can find somewhere in the middle, and let's approach mom and see where she is. So some siblings they want to stay out of the picture. I've seen that before. Mom never really cared about me. You've always been her favorite. So you take on all of this stuff about selling the home and moving and all. Call me if you need me. So I think we want to engage together and say, look, I can do these things, but I really could use your help for those things. And can we find some way to work on this together? It's not easy. Yeah.
All right. Is there any piece of wisdom that you want to give us as we wrap up about aging? Is there one final piece of wisdom?
Yeah. Well, I think the narrative is changing, and we want to pay attention to that. The myth of frailty that's going away, and there are some realities that people have some medical conditions, but let's look at aging as a time of opportunity, as a time to look forward and not dread. I mean, there's still people that dread getting older. I say, well, yeah, we got some medical conditions, maybe some hearing loss or visual loss or whatever's going on. We can fix some of those things. We bring in some aids, but let's not give up. As long as we have that, like I said earlier, as long as we can take that breath, we still have that fire inside of us, and we can still push forward. So that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Nice. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for being here. How can anybody get in touch with you? Tell us about where the easiest way is to get you.
Yeah. Well, my office number, I'll give you my office number, 858-272-3992. If I'm not available, you can leave a voice message. I have 3 websites because I'm taking different paths to aging well. And one is my livingto100.club. And that's got all my podcasts and my blogs and my presentations. That's my main website. My second website, they're all 3 have Living to 100. The first is .club. The second is .solutions. And that's where I'm selling my card decks. You can see behind me for people that are just hearing the audio. I have 12 modules, 60 cards, and they're containing activities and discussion topics and inspirational stories for programming directors, activity directors, and they're really pretty unique. So that's Living to 100 .solutions. You can look there. I have an online store. And the last one is my newest, and that's Living to Another Dot community. That's where we allow for engagement, connection, sharing. And, I have about 25 members. I'm really open to more. It's free. There is a pay tier, but most of our people are at the free level. So 3 websites, .club, .solutions, .community, and my phone number.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. I really appreciate this conversation because I don't know if I'm going to live to 100,
Yep.
but I've got the mindset that I will live to 100.
That's a great goal, but it's more important about our thinking and mindset about living towards it. Yeah. Thank you so much for this invitation, Chris. I always enjoy talking about these topics, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you so much. And if you all want to get in touch with Dr. Joe, I will put, again, all his information in the show notes with all of his websites. Thank you so much for listening to Moving Mom and Downsizing Dad. We will catch you on the next episode. Thank you so much.